Welcome to Spotlight on New England, where we delve into the diverse and inspiring stories of pastors shaping communities across the New England area. Join us as we unravel their journeys, wisdom, and the unique experiences of these spiritual leaders who are making a profound impact in this region. Get ready for insightful conversations that transcend the pulpit and bring you closer to the heart of each pastor. Good afternoon and welcome to Spotlight on New England. Today we're in Danbury, Connecticut at St. James African Methodist Episcopal Church, where the Reverend Tamesha Mills is pastor. Good afternoon, Pastor Mills. How are you today?
Good afternoon, Elder. I'm doing wonderful. I ate my food, so I feel good.
You're energized.
If I hadn't, this would have been a different interview. I'm telling you.
I'm glad you had lunch. Well, thank you for making time for us today.
Of course.
And just to open us up, how about if you share a little bit about your journey into the ministry and pastoral ministry specifically?
Oh boy. Okay. So I was raised in a missionary Baptist church. It was my family's church. My grandfather was the head deacon of the church. My parents were married in that church. So I've been raised in the church, and never saw myself in ordained ministry. I wanted to be an on-air reporter. But as I got older, and when my grandfather passed away, I was doing some soul searching. I was asking some deep questions of the Lord. And at that time, I needed to get back into the church more consistently. And this was about right after I graduated undergrad. And at that time, I felt like I could not go back to my home church because there were too many memories there. And I was not ready to deal with those things yet. And so I went down 2 blocks away to the church that everybody, if you're from Queens, you know that church. I went to the Greater Allen Cathedral of New York. And that was where I really had my spiritual formation. I became a grown-up saint where I had my own journey with the Lord. I wasn't going to church because it was just what you did, and that's what the family said you had to do. But I was going because I was seeking the Lord. And I remember this like it was yesterday. Every sermon felt like it was for me. Every sermon felt like it was for me. And so I knew that was the church I needed to be at. And I said, Lord, okay, now that I'm here, where do you want me? And anywhere I go, I fall into leadership positions because I'm just a leader. But I was doing ministry organically just through gathering with young adults, doing Bible studies and being in prayer and all of these things that are organic in community. And then it was then that the Lord called me to do more. Yeah. And I said, Lord, what? I'm good right here. I'm good right here. I'm fine here. I'm comfortable here. I don't think I need to do more. I don't need a title. All those things, we tell ourselves when the Lord has a different plan for us. But it was there that I finally said yes. And I, and at that time, I spoke to, my pastor, and I spoke to some other ministers, and they said, well, you got to go to seminary. And it was fast-tracked from there. It felt like it was fast-tracked from there. And so I went into seminary. Before that, I did my trial sermon. And right after that, I did my trial sermon in May. And practically in September, I was starting a new program. And then the ordination process started. And so I did not see myself in ordained ministry, but God saw something in me and a demographic maybe that needed to be reached. And the Lord had to remind me that I belong to him. And so I said yes, and that's how I got here.
Yeah. And you briefly mentioned wanting to be a broadcast on-air interviewer. Can you share a little bit about that? Didn't you have a career in media?
Yes, I did. And so I believed that I was going to be an on-air reporter. And specifically, I was going to be a sideline reporter for the Knicks.
Okay.
All right. So I was a huge sports fan, huge basketball fan. The Knicks were my team. And so I went to school. My undergraduate degree is in communications. And then I received my master's in journalism, print journalism, but just because I wanted to know everything. You know, I said, if they call me out on a shoot or if they call me out on something, I want to be able to shoot it and write it and do the interview and do everything. And so I said that I was going to be on air. And I did some internships at CBS Sports and ABC Sports. And that's what I was going to do. And then it was 2009, I graduated. And there was a shortage of jobs. You know, that was like the housing bubble and everything like that. And so it was very difficult to get a position in sports and particularly in broadcasting. And so I had to go a different route and I had to trust God. And, you know, if we really had time, I would tell you the whole story. But in that time, that was around the time I was doing the soul searching as well. And so the Lord led me a different path. And I have always been into fitness, always been into health. I was an athlete in college and in high school. And so at that time of soul searching, I fell into a position at a gym. I worked at Equinox, and it taught me so much about business, about building clients, about working with people. And it was at that job where the Lord really was guiding me and telling me that I needed to relinquish control. And at that job, and I had left my good job once again to take on this job that was commission based, but I did it by faith.
Yeah.
And I was getting clients. People were walking up to me, asking me to train them. And it was at that job that I met my employer at NBC. And so I left there and I worked at NBC and I worked in post-production. So I wasn't on air, I was behind the scenes. And we used to, just make sure the content was prepped and ready for air. And so that is where I worked before actually I went to seminary.
I'm quite sure that you've been able to use the skills and experiences, draw upon the experiences you had in your previous career as it relates to pastoral ministry.
Absolutely. The Lord uses everything. There is nothing that is in vain. I think, my attention to detail, even when I'm thinking about digital media, things that we're putting out there, flyers, I'm using all of that training, all of the mistakes that I may have made in corporate America, all of the things that the resources that we've had in corporate America, all of that is used. The business savvy that I had at Equinox, right? To build client base, all of those things help me in pastoral ministry and thinking about what are the needs of the community, what are the needs and what are the qualities that I have? What are the strengths that we have in the church to meet those needs of the people? And how do we find common ground? All of that the Lord has used.
Yeah. And it's so necessary to be engaged in the community and, able to communicate the message and vision of a congregation.
Yes, absolutely. When I was, when I was writing, in journalism, I think about how we had to tell the story. We had to tell the story. And you wanted to create stories that gave the facts about what's happening, whatever the event is or whatever's happening in the world. But you want to tell the story in a way in which it is relatable to people. And I see that in my sermon prep, right?
Yeah.
I think we all kind of work hard at that, trying to make sure that we are proclaiming the word with integrity, but also allowing people to connect with it in a way that is transformative. And I know that a lot of that not only stems from my training in seminary, but the way the Lord has used all of my education and training ground for this particular season that I'm in.
And that, for many of us, is the beauty of the pastoral ministry, where experiences and even trials and sufferings come into play. Everything comes together in that moment.
Together. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And we don't see it in the moment, right? We're always kind of looking back, and we can see how good and how faithful God has been, and we can appreciate the trials and appreciate those moments of suffering that we overcame.
Yeah.
Right, because there's a time of overcoming. We're not suffering
not living
long,
there.
right? We're not indefinitely suffering,
right.
But there is an overcoming. Right, there's joy that comes in the morning, and so I look at these experiences and some of the ups and downs in this new era of pastoral ministry. And I'm like, I thank God for seminary, because getting through that, I feel like, Lord, we here, we could do anything.
Exactly.
We could do anything.
Yeah, they say you unlearn everything, when you go through seminary, and then what you were taught doesn't necessarily help immediately in your pastoral setting.
Right.
So we're an itinerant ministry. And you began in New York, and now you're in Connecticut.
Yeah.
How has the adjustment, how has that transition been for you?
Yeah, it has been a transition, that's for sure. Connecticut is very different from New York, even though we're not far away from each other. But it's a different culture and environment. I mean, first things first, I am a foodie. And so I like to have access to good food at all times. And that is one thing that is always a challenge when I leave New York City, because I'm looking for good food. And sometimes it's late at night.
Variety.
And variety. And so, in Danbury in particular, there is good food. I'm just trying to navigate where those places are, when they're open. And this may not be why you asked this question, but this is what's important to me. Food is important. So that's one thing. But the transition, just being away from family and friends and having a trek to get to them, that's always a challenge.
Yes.
In any transition, because you want to feel supported, you want to feel like you have a village with you. And so I think the main thing for me, the main challenge for me has been to build the village, right, where I am, building the community here, community within the congregation and community outside the congregation, and just seeing what's out here, where to go for what. And, I have been met with some really good feedback as far as people coming to the church and saying, listen, if you need a doctor, or do you need a dentist, those things, right? I know where you can go. So that is a challenge because, being in pastoral ministry, it's so busy. There's always something going on. And a lot of times you don't have the time to sit and do the research the way you would want to. I'm a planner. And so I want to see, the best doctors and, I'm finding Black doctors and Black dentists and you don't always have the time to do that work. And so building community and having a village that can help with that, and this is what the church is about, right? Is very helpful. But that has been the challenge, the main challenge. But transition is good. I welcome transition and new things, because it just means that God has more possibilities in store, right? A new season to embark on. And I really try to keep that perspective of, Lord, you have me here. What is it that you need me to do in this season, in the place that I'm in? Because I don't believe, I think that God is very intentional. And it just requires us to be focused, present, and surrender to what the Lord has in that season. And so, although it's rough with the transition, I embrace the new possibilities.
Yeah, it's almost a year.
It's 8 months.
Yeah. Also work full time? Am I correct there?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
I do. I am bivocational.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm working full time. I am working at a nonprofit, the Prosperity Foundation. And I'm working with a dear colleague in ministry and
Mm-hmm.
sister friend, Reverend Orstella Hughes. And that has been wonderful in that it has afforded me some flexibility
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to matters of the church.
Yeah.
And also, it has just helped with shaping my understanding of the opportunities that are out here for our
Mm-hmm.
churches,
Mm-hmm.
funding opportunities, but also just opportunities for collaboration.
Yeah.
And it's been really, divinely ordered because I've met some really good people in Connecticut, and that's what I'm trying to do, right? Build a village and understand, the politics and just everything in Connecticut. And so working with the Prosperity Foundation, I've had an opportunity to meet some really influential folks and some wonderful grassroots people that are doing phenomenal work, specifically in Black communities within Connecticut. That's the space that I like to be in, to know, who's out here working, who wants to collaborate, who may not be for the cause and understand the vision. And working there has really helped me with understanding that for Connecticut in particular.
Yeah. Have you any hobbies?
Yes, so my hobbies, I like to go to the gym, and I'm getting back into that because that really brings me joy and it keeps me well. Um, uh, and not only it's just imperative that we all do it for our health. So I'm a foodie. I like going to different restaurants. I like being with friends and family and trying out different things. I also am a movie buff. I love movies, old movies, new movies, horror films, love stories, suspense, you name it. If you say, "Oh, you should take a look at this movie," I'm probably going to watch it.
Yeah.
If I don't, it's just because I don't have the time, but it's on my list. So I love movies, and I like the act and the practice of going to movies. So I like Netflix and all of that, but I like going and to the movies and getting the popcorn and watching the movie together in community. That's something that I actually love to do as well.
Yeah.
I do like reading, and I just don't have a lot of time to do it. And but that is a hobby of mine. I like to read what I want to read, and actually, that is the best feeling of coming out of seminary.
Yeah.
Being able to read what I want to read when I want to read it. It is beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful. So yeah, I would say just finding new places to eat, going to the movies. I love that. Working out is definitely a hobby that I do more frequently than the others.
And how do you navigate that space between community outreach and serving the current congregation? How do you balance that?
That's a good question. I think I'm still figuring out that balance. What has been helpful for me is to every now and then make sure that I'm walking and going to get food within the community. That allows me to organically just meet people and see what's happening. And it gives me an opportunity to tell them about the church, right? So that is community outreach, right? I make sure to stay involved with the NAACP chapter here. Going to the meetings, that's a way for me to tell them what's happening and for them to tell me what's happening. I'm also connected with the Danbury pastors in the community. And so they shoot me text messages here and there about what's happening in the community. And I am just always looking to see what's happening and where I feel like St. James can maybe be a resource for people. And just to talk to people and say, what is it that you need? And I think organically, that community outreach happens. As far as the congregation, and one of these things I learned from one of my mentors, the Reverend Stephen Lewis, pastor of Bethel A.M.E. in Freeport, is, when I first got here, he's like, call your members. And so I was calling people and talking to them every week, and just staying engaged with them and understanding, where do they work and what kind of things do they like to do. And so it's just about time management. I'm still balancing both community outreach and getting to know members. So when those spaces come available, I try to take advantage of all of those opportunities. If we have an official board meeting, there's going to be an icebreaker. There's going to be a moment where I'm trying to connect with the congregation. And I believe that everybody does appreciate it, because I see it, in their answers. And then on the community piece, I just try to make it organic by being out and about.
Yeah, I really think it's important to share from time to time the challenges that we have being who we are, a female, and if I can share, single, making that transition with no one else there.
Yeah.
And if you feel comfortable and want to share anything in that regard.
No, that is a great question.
And it's not something that we can avoid. I mean, it's who we are. I mean, having had multiple transitions as a single person, it can be, I don't want to talk about the loneliness necessarily, but really, I don't know if people appreciate what it takes to do that.
I think the church has a difficult time with appreciating different seasons in people's lives. So the church has to understand that everyone is not going to be married, and everyone may not want to be married, right? And so, and I say that first because, what happens is there are certain expectations that are imposed on people like me, right, who is a young adult and who is unmarried and who is in the pastoral ministry, right? And so because we aspire as a church, because we aspire as a church to everyone being married, we tend to not make accommodations for those who are not there yet, or who may not want to be there. And so what I have found, particularly being a young adult who is unmarried and who aspires to be married, I'll say that, is that it is very difficult to travel to these meetings, to try to attend, everything, to be prayed up and, I'm ready to preach every week, and to also be trying to plan our lives, right? Whether that's financial stability, whether that's doing our own self-reflection and therapy to be well and able to love and be loved, right? Those things that are necessary to prepare a person to be married, if they want to be married, the church doesn't support. And I think that is what is very difficult, right? Aside from, I happen to be a person that is somewhat of an introvert, right? So I actually, I need to have time for myself.
Right,
I'm
to recharge.
always peopling. And so, so having that time to myself, I thank the Lord that I have people in my life. When I want to be in community, I don't feel lonely in that way, right? But there are times I'm like, this would be so much easier if I had a partner, right? But those other things I'm working on that make me a better person and a better partner. And it would be helpful if there was support from the church in that sense. But right now, the way we are situated, we're situated in that, everybody has to do this, and we have a clergy spouses, luncheon and things, and people tell you, well, you really should go to that, and I'm like, well, why? Right. Why? And so I think that's what is most difficult. Aside from, and loneliness is a thing. I don't want to negate that. Loneliness is a thing when you're going through transition. You want to feel supported. You want to have a village. You want to have somebody who you can tell all those deep things to. But I have been fortunate to have just really good people in my life to be able to go to for those things. But it's these other areas that we don't talk about that makes us actually healthy, thriving, mature adults and partners for people that needs to be fortified, that needs to be supported. And when you're trying to be better and work on yourself and trying to do all the things that are catered to folks who are coupled, that's what makes it difficult. I hope that that's clear. That's what
perfectly clear,
a challenge
and relatable, in so many ways. And I wanted to bring that out because I think that's a uniqueness in a district where most of our pastors are married or older and so
and this is something that I hope that I can help with, right? In the district and just with young adults and youth, because this is such a instrumental part of people's lives. We have to, as a church, begin to have more dialogue around what it means to date, and what it means to know that your pastor dates, instead of just having people show up one day married.
Right.
Exactly. We need to talk about this. And because I think a lot of ministers struggle with this, people struggle with, how much of themselves should they reveal?
Right.
And I've talked to the Lord about this and have done some self-reflection. And I don't hide my life. I don't have anything to hide, but I do think that there are things that should be kept sacred, right? Because people can't handle everything. And but dating, I think the church needs to understand that your pastor will need to go through the same steps that you all went through to get married, right? There is a courting process, right? And if we don't teach young people what it means to date as a Christian, Christian young woman, Christian young man, how will they know? They will get all this information from
elsewhere, everywhere else.
And so, and I think people have a problem with understanding that pastors are human beings. And we, live lives, and it's okay.
Definitely. Okay. Yeah. And I think you touched on a good point as it relates to our young people and young adults, helping them to realize healthy ways of forming relationships and adulting.
Right. So and it's not something that we all know is no rubric to this, right? We just need to have open dialogue and safe spaces about it. And me living in this area now, I live where I'm pastoring. And, I've had people say, well, don't go here and don't do this or don't go out. And I'm just like, what way is that to live? Right. I don't live my life in secret, and I'm not ashamed of anything that I do. And if I am, then I need to go back to the Lord and I need to check my behavior. Right. And so this is how we can hold people accountable to pastoral ministry, ordained ministry. And I think this is how we can get free, because so many people are living, and I'm talking mainly about people that are in ordained ministry. They're living completely different lives from what they're preaching and from what their congregation knows. And I have had these conversations with the Lord that is something that I will not do. And so I think it's a constant reflecting and a constant spiritual walk, and it keeps us leaning on the Lord, and not doing things in our own strength. But like you said, it's complex. It's complex, but manageable and doable.
How do you carve out space for your personal devotion and not just sermon preparation, but life devotions?
Yes. So this is an ongoing process, but coming into the ministry, pastoral ministry, I should say, I told my congregations, or I was my congregation, I was clear with them on what boundaries I had or was trying to establish. And this is something that I think is very difficult in the Black church in particular. But I think because the Lord has had me on this health journey, right, has had me on this restorative journey, and even going through seminary where I saw when, your boundaries are relaxed, what it can do to your body, what it can do to your spirit, and all these things. The Lord was preparing me for pastoral ministry, that, I'm a person that is hands-on in ministry. I like to see people at their greatest and push them to their highest potential, and that requires a lot. And so one thing I do that is important for work-life balance is to set healthy boundaries. And once you have set them, to stick to them and be unapologetic about them as much as you can be. And so, I have my regimen. Sometimes that means I have to call people back. And I have to be okay with that. And others, what I find is that when you set healthy boundaries and you communicate them, you have to communicate them. When you set healthy boundaries and communicate them, your environment changes. People begin to respect those boundaries. If you don't ever set them, people are not trying to necessarily run over you, but because your gift or whatever is needed, people will constantly ask of you. And so we have to set the standard, I think, as leaders in the church, to be healthy and teach others how to be healthy. And when we are all doing this together, our communities benefit, our churches benefit, because we're actually more efficient. We can actually love one another the way that is not a burden so much, right? But, and then we can be free from feeling like we have to do everything for everyone.
Right. Yeah.
And one of the things that the Lord has been working with me on is, digital ministry and things. Everyone's like, you have to have a digital footprint. And I agree with that. But the Spirit gave this to me. I am not the pastor of the world. I am the pastor of St. James. And that means St. James has particular access to me that others do not. And I have to remember that when it comes to digital ministry. People should have access to encounter God, but that does not mean I need to pastor everyone.
Got it.
Right?
Yeah.
I need to pastor this church. And that has freed me to not be trying to do everything for everyone when it comes to digital ministry, right? But to be focused on this church and make sure that what we are doing here is made available to others.
Yep. I'm a little confused when you mentioned digital ministry and not being everyone's pastor. Had that been an expectation of folks online, or I wasn't?
That is an expectation. I think that is an expectation that some ministries have, or I should say some ministers have, right? That, you have to be putting everything out online.
Got
and
it.
I think that is the wrong perspective to have. I've even had some conversations with other pastors, and I think this is a good question. who is actually a member of the church.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Right. Who's actually a member?
The virtual world.
With the virtual world, right? Because, we're opening up the doors of the church when we're online, and we're saying, if you want to give your life to Christ, right? And that person needs to be nurtured. And then we say, if you want to join the church, right? But what does it mean to join the church? Because if someone is across the country and now they want you to, bury their dead, or they, they want you to come and, what does it mean to be a member of the church then? And I think it's complex.
It is.
It's complex.
And these are some of the conversations we need to be having as a denomination, or as the body of Christ, period.
Yes.
What does it mean? Because we're not, I don't want to diminish it, but just televangelists, with no local connections.
Right. And so I think, what the Lord has pressed upon my heart as a minister that's doing this work is that I am more community based, right? And so I can only do what the Lord has gifted me to do, right? And so for me, in that instance, there are churches everywhere. And I would want to connect people to where they can get some hands-on community support and ministry right where they are.
Right.
And we have to be those that are secure enough to know that everybody doesn't have to be a part of our church. Everybody doesn't have to give to our church and feel like, they need to get something in return, but that we can do this work together. And I think that's what I mean by not being a pastor of the world, but being the pastor of this church and being able to direct people to the right resources, to ministry resources, right where they are.
Yeah. Okay. Kind of shifting gears slightly. Let's see. Who are 3 people, living or deceased, that you would like to have a conversation with?
Oh, that's good. I know one person.
Okay.
I would love to have a conversation with my grandfather. He has passed away. But I would love to just talk to him about what's happening right now, because he has never obviously seen me in ministry. He passed away in 2011, and he was the one, I would go to my grandpa's house probably like 3 times at least a week.
Wow. Yeah.
And I would watch whatever game he was watching, and we would have whatever talks we were going to have. And he would give me advice on things, and I would tell him what not to eat, and I remember when, I remember when I graduated with my undergraduate degree, he was so excited. And so now since that time, I have like 3 other degrees, and he was the head deacon at the church. He handled all the matters at the church. So for him to see now that I'm a pastor, I would love to just sit and talk to him about just everything that's happening this season. And okay, so who else? 2 other people. So I guess they could be celebrities and everything, right? I think I would love to have a conversation with Oprah. I want to know more about Oprah's spiritual practices. She's somebody that has been in media, has been in broadcast for a very long time. She's somebody that has, received scrutiny for how she has become big, and, maybe where she maybe has compromised early in her career. And now she has, been able to do some really great work, and has done a lot of missional work. And she's working closely with Tyler Perry, who is very, very vocal about his faith. And so I would want to talk to her. I just want to know more about where she stands, maybe spiritually, and talk about her journey. And then I would probably want to talk to, I'm gonna just say her name because she's coming to mind. Fannie Lou Hamer.
Yeah.
Because when I read about her, she's just so powerful. Like she like jumps off the page of how fed up she was and how she, maybe she wasn't articulate, but she was going to let you know what she had to say. And she was violated in very just preposterous ways. But she stood her ground in doing the activism that needed to be done in her era. And so I just would want to talk to her. I want to know what her favorite hymn is, or I just want to hear the scriptures that gets her, that would have gotten her through that time, and what she would say about what's happening now.
And how would you like to be remembered?
How would I like to be remembered? I want to be remembered as someone who cared about other people. I want to be remembered as someone who pushed others to be their best selves. I want to be remembered as someone who was not afraid to do what was right and what needed to be done. Someone who is not concerned about my own edification, but that it's clear through my work that I am deeply invested in loving neighbor. And I want to be remembered as someone who was guided by faith. And I say that because a lot of people talk about, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, and they sometimes leave off Reverend. But a lot of the things that he did, practically everything that he did, was guided by his understanding of his faith and justice through Jesus Christ. So I want to be somebody remembered as, a person that just reminded people of how they could be their best selves. And that motivation comes from my faith, not anything that, I picked up in a self-help book, or anything like that, right? But that because I believe in the ministry of Jesus Christ, I believe that we deserve the best.
Right.
And that we can have the best, and that God wants the best for us. And therefore, we don't have to just accept anything outside of that. So I hope I can be remembered as all of those things.
Yeah. Well, you're well on your way, Reverend Tamesha.
Thank you. You're kind.
Is there anything that you'd like to share about ministry projects you have occurring here at St. James?
Yes. We are excited because we have been doing a good amount of collaboration with the community. We've been doing joint services. And so we have this gospel concert coming up. It's called Let Praises Rise. And it is March 16th at 5:30 p.m. right here at the church, St. James A.M.E. Church, 45 William Street, Danbury, Connecticut. And we have praise teams coming from all the different churches in the area. We have some soloists coming to sing, and we're just going to worship the true and living God. And so we're excited about that because we haven't had that many in-person events like this in years. And so we're having that come up. We are also doing some regular activities with our young people with the YPD. And so every fourth Sunday now, we're going to have a fellowship after church. This past Sunday, We had the young people doing some games like charades and taboo, and I enjoyed it very much so. And so it's been a long time for our church that we've been able to fellowship in this way with COVID and all the transition. And so we are excited to be introducing some of these more in-person activities where those who used to come out in the community of Danbury can now come out, have this safe space, and share in fellowship and in community. So we're excited about that.
Yeah. I've been doing same questions to everyone from my late night TV watching. Stephen Colbert does the Coar Questionnaire. And so I've got about 9 questions that I'll ask you. Just say whatever comes to your mind. Apples or oranges?
Definitely apples.
What is the best sandwich?
Oh, the best sandwich? I would say I love a tuna sandwich.
All right. Most used app on your phone?
Definitely, I would say either Instagram, or is Google an app? No, right?
People have said Google, so.
Definitely Google. That's the app.
Cats or dogs?
Cats.
Flight or road trip?
Flight.
All right. What's one thing you own that you really need to throw away?
What's one thing
you own that you need to throw away?
Oh, that's good. I have these pair of pants. I'm sharing a lot today, but I have these pair of pants that I absolutely love. They are very comfortable, but they have a few holes in them. I need to throw those away.
Their time has come.
Their time is up. But you wear things around the house and everything, and then you realize it's really deteriorating, and you just keep washing it. I should throw those away.
Okay.
No promises.
And if you were stranded on an island somewhere, what must you have with you?
I remember you asking somebody this question. I think I'm going to say 2 things. For the basic necessity, I need water, but I think music.
Okay.
I think music.
And you get one song to listen to for the rest of your life.
One song for the rest of my life? Oh my goodness. That is hard. What is that song by C.C. Winans? Oh, The Goodness of God. You know that song?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think I could listen to that song the rest of my
life.
I
think it'll hold me already. Yeah.
I think it'll hold me.
Okay. And last question: describe the rest of your life in 5 words.
These questions are hard. Describe the rest of my life in 5 words.
Or better said, what 5 words describe the rest of your life?
Right. Faith, love, community. I think security would be one, and legacy would probably be the last one.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Reverend Tamesha Mills. We have enjoyed our conversation today and look forward to chatting with you some more sometime.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, thanks for your time.